On Facebook the other day, I saw one of these cartoon pictures that came up in my feed. I actually saved it onto my phone. It was a picture of a store. It was a cartoon picture of a store. And the store was called the "If It Ain't Broke, Don't Fix It" shop. And it said, "Bring your unbroken items and we won't fix them for cheap." And I thought, I really need to talk about that. Where does this apply to us is we're corrective, right, in this industry. And if you specialize a little bit in rehab or prehab, you're often about correcting, assessing, correcting, preventing, etc. Sometimes I think we become over-corrective, and I've always used that expression. You know what, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I'll give you an example. I had a client come in to see me for a shoulder problem. And a lot of my assessment is sitting with the person and talking with them and just gathering information on what they do, how they move, what their personality is like. And this person, I could tell from my assessment, and I won't go into all the detail of my assessment obviously, but I could tell that it was a lot about his movement behavior and his breathing and him being tensed, and that's where some of his shoulder problems were coming from. Of course, there was a physical assessment attached to that too, but as I said, I won't go into all the details of that. But among other things, he also had a bit of an anterior pelvic tilt. That was his usual, that's his usual posture. He's got a bit of an anterior pelvis. So as we went into assessment and we chatted and chatted and chatted, and I talked to him about his shoulder and gave him a little bit of information on what I was seeing, and did that sound familiar to him when I was talking to him about his behavior and how maybe that contributed to his shoulder problem. Then we started talking about how, you know, the whole body works as a kinetic chain, and he said to me, I also have to correct my anterior pelvic tilt. You know, I've read about it and I need to have neutral pelvis. And I said, well, we're going to look at how your anterior pelvic tilt contributes to your shoulder and shoulder movement and shoulder exercises and overhead movement. And yes, you'll need to correct that tilt when you're loaded and when you're doing stuff, but you don't need to permanently correct your anterior pelvic tilt. And he was like, but everywhere I read that you can't have an anterior pelvic tilt, you need neutral pelvis. And this is what I mean by if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's literally what I said to him. It's not broken. You need to consider it in certain types of movement and in certain things that you do if it's contributing to your shoulder. But you don't need to go about correcting it in your daily life. And he was literally telling me that when he stands, he tucks his pelvis and everything he does. And so he's like, I'm always thinking about it, and I'm always thinking about my pelvis, and and I thought, no, you don't have lower back pain, you don't have hip pain, you know, and what you're doing that's creating shoulder pain and what portion of that is related to your pelvis will address that. But we're not correcting your anterior pelvic tilt. You're not broken because you have anterior pelvic tilt. So when I saw that Facebook cartoon, if it ain't broke, don't fix it shop, I thought, nobody wants to be that. You don't want to be, as a trainer, the if it ain't broke, don't fix it shop. So just remember that you don't have to correct everything, and movement doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be better.